Welcome to the Social Media Takeaway. I'm your host, Louise McDonnell, and today I'm speaking to Jennie Bellinger, a direct sales and network marketing expert. If you want to have better sales conversations and learn how to convert more prospects into customers, tune into this episode. It's packed full of advice you're not going to want to miss. Hi everyone, so I'd like to welcome Jennie Bellinger to the show today. Jennie is a direct sales and network marketing expert. She is a certified professional coach and the host of the Badass Direct Sales Mastery podcast. She works with badass direct sales leaders to help them focus on business growth activities so they can be present with their family. You're very welcome to the show, Jennie.
Oh, thanks for having me, Louise. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. Do you maybe start by telling us a little bit about your journey?
Well, my journey started, interestingly enough, in a middle school science classroom. That's what I did as my first real grown up job out of college, and took some time off to have my oldest child, thinking it's education. I can go back anytime, right? I can be a teacher anytime. Not realizing that that giant recession that happened in 2008 to 2012 was on its way, because my kiddo was born in 2008. And so around 2010, I was like, well, maybe I'll try and get back into the classroom. And the universe had other ideas. So that year I went on 18 interviews to a variety of schools in my area and 18 no's. And it's not that they didn't want me, it's they always hired the brand new college grad who also interviewed for the position because it was cheaper to hire someone brand new instead of a teacher with experience. So finally, after the 18th no, I went, okay, universe, finally took the hint.
I hear you.
I hear you. I hear you. And so I said, okay, if I'm not supposed to be in the classroom, where am I meant to be? And a couple days later, I got an invitation in my mailbox. Yes, the actual mailbox with an envelope and a stamp, and somebody sent me a thing, a real thing. Yeah, it was an invitation to a direct sales jewelry event. So there was a company that was launching in my area, and my sister-in-law was starting her business with them. So I went with the intention of helping my sister-in-law. Had not connected me asking the universe what I was supposed to do with the arrival of the invitation. I go to the event a few days later, and by the end of the event, I walked out with a business, a direct sales business of my own. And I had zero sales experience at all. I was a teacher. I was a mom, and I had not connected all of the selling I did as a teacher on how to get kids to do their homework. I had not connected the selling my kids to eat their vegetables. Right.
And that's a tough sale.
Right. If you can get your kids to eat vegetables, you can sell some jewelry, let me tell you.
I love it.
So that's where my first entrepreneurial piece came in. And so I was with that company for 7 years. During that 7-year time period, I earned the cars, the trips, the cash bonuses checks with commas in them, things like that. And over time realized that there were a lot of people who were in and out of the industry. And one of the benefits that I had that not everybody else had was my upline was fantastic. So I had a lot of great support from that leader who I was working with. And I realized not everybody had that. So I figured if I can go out into the world and be the upline that people wish they had. And so that's how I ended up getting into the world of coaching people who are in direct sales and network marketing and MLM, because there's just so many of them who are at the mercy of who brought them into the business, and they don't know where else to go. And so that's where I am today.
And I think sales is a kind of a unique talent, I would say, because most people would rather stick a pin in their eyes than do sales. So I remember having people that worked with me in various positions, and they were saying, I'll do anything. I'll do absolutely anything, but don't ask me to pick up the phone and ask something to buy something. So I think if it's not in you, it's very hard, I think, to become, I think it's a certain individual. But then again, you have business owners or solopreneurs who have to be able to generate sales for their businesses, or else, the businesses won't exist. So what are the secrets to succeeding with sales and direct sales?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. So I have a 4-pillar system in my business, and it breaks it down into, first of all, people have to treat this business, whether it's direct sales, network marketing, or their coaching business. It really doesn't matter, right? So my 4 pillars are BDSM, Badass Direct Sales Mastery, BDSM.
Love
So
it.
the first pillar is B, business. Treat it like a business. You've got to be all in and be committed. This is not a hobby. This is not I'm going to try to be successful. No, you're in or you're out, right? I'm about to age myself here, people, because I grew up with Master Yoda being quoted at me all the time. There is no try, do or do not, right? So treat your business like a business, so that's really the first piece, because when you treat your business like a business, especially in direct sales and network marketing, then other people take you more seriously and the sales become easier, actually, right? Because you're treating it like a business and they take you more seriously. And so they're like, oh, okay, well, instead of you giving me a bunch of samples that'll get me through the next week, yes, I'll go ahead and buy the widget, right? Whatever that may be. The D is discipline, right? So when you're all in, then the discipline becomes really easy. You don't have to work that hard because you're already committed. So spending anywhere from 15 minutes to 4 hours, 8 hours a day in your business, depending on whether you're working at part-time or full-time. I recently saw a meme going around on social media that said, you can work 8 hours for someone else's business. You can put in an hour for your own, right? Like, I was like, oh, that hits home so hard for sure. And so that discipline of just doing something every single day to build your business, touch your business every single day. Do not let it go by the wayside, because as my mentor used to say quite often, the great thing about this business is it's flexible. The problem with this business is that it's flexible. If you're not careful, you can flex yourself right out of business. So that discipline piece of going in and doing something every single day and being really disciplined about also making sure you're doing those income producing activities is very important as well.
So
Because
important.
if you're not making
Because
money, you're not going to stick with it.
I know, and it's like I work with so many businesses that they just don't have the focus on marketing and sales, and they'll invest in other parts of their businesses but they don't see the correlation between investing in marketing and sales. And sometimes they find it even hard to invest in paid ads. And you're like, well, if you don't invest, if you don't invest your time, if you don't invest your efforts, if you don't invest your money in generating new business, well, then you might find it hard to get new business.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, for sure. And so that connection piece is very easy, right? When you are fully committed and you're doing something in your business every single day. So there's that. The S is the sales part. Now, this is the part that a lot of direct sales and network marketers do struggle a lot with. And it's mostly because they're focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on what the money is going to do for them. They're focused on asking for the money instead of focusing on solving the problem for the other person that they're talking to. As soon as you focus on solving the problem, the sales are easy. Most salespeople are talking way too much and not listening enough. And so the sales pillar is the one that most people spend the most time in my program, because it's learning the art of the sales conversation that is question based, that is listening based. What are you listening for? What are they saying? What aren't they saying? What questions are you going to ask to get them to talk about the things that they aren't saying, right? To find out where they are in the process of solving the problem. Because you may believe that your essential oils, for example, can solve all the things and everybody needs essential oils. But here's the thing. Not everybody believes that they need essential oils to solve their problem until the problem becomes so big that now all of a sudden, okay, I'm willing to try your essential oil, your whatever it may be, And so the example that I'll share from that in my own life, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, I started as a middle school science teacher. I was very skeptical about essential oils when they started coming out on the market. I was like, really? An essential oil is like sniffing some oil is going to make me better. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I'll believe. Yeah. Sure. Until one day I had a migraine, and my migraines are completely unpredictable. Regular medications, the typical prescriptions don't touch them. They don't do anything for them. And so I was just suffering through it. And my friend, who was still is an essential oil lady, brought me oil that is known to help with migraines. And I was like, at that point, I was desperate for a solution because my migraines were taking me out of commission 2 and 3 days a month. As a mom to 2 young children and running a business and running a networking group that I was the president of at the time, I could not afford being completely out of commission 2 to 3 days a month. I mean, who can, right? So I tried this oil very, very skeptically. And lo and behold, 15 minutes after putting the oil on my thumb, putting it to the roof of my mouth for 15 minutes or for 10 seconds, which I felt completely like an idiot, like I was sucking my thumb, right? But you know what? 15 minutes later, when that migraine was gone, didn't really care. And I said, how much is that bottle of oil? I don't care what the cost is. I just want to know how much is going on my credit card.
Okay, so let's take that back then, that example for anyone,
Yeah.
let's say that really doesn't like selling but has to do as part of their business, right? So
Mhm.
let's say that you roll back. So before you had the migraine, before you had that experience, before you got the solution. So
Mhm.
let's say your friend wasn't your friend and she came and she was chatting to you and she was trying to sell you. Oh, I said trying. She was selling, attempting
Attempting,
to,
yes.
to sell you these essential oils. So as a salesperson, what questions would you have recommended that she ask you?
Mm. So it would have been, what are the things that are such a big pain in your ass that you're willing to do anything to fix them, right? So it could be, what's your biggest challenge right now? What is your biggest frustration right now? And up until I had the migraine, I would not have necessarily have thought of the migraine. It would have probably been something along the lines of my kids won't go to bed. Like, I can't get them to go to bed easily. Like, it's a fight every single night. Well, turns out after I started believing that the migraine oil worked, I shared with her, well, what about my kids going to bed?
Here's
And
all my
she
other problems. Here.
right here, right. What else can you make better for me, right? Because you just solved my biggest one right then and there, right? So it was the my kids won't go to bed. Well, then she gave me something that helps my kids go to bed easily every night now. And so I've been using this system for years now with my children. And to this day, even though they're now teenagers, they still follow the system
Oh,
for
wow.
bedtime, right? So it's what is the big pain point that the person is feeling? And here's what's really important as a salesperson. Whatever their biggest pain point is, whatever their biggest challenge is, whatever their biggest frustration is, if you personally or your business does not have the solution to that problem, your next best bet is to find the person who does solve that problem, because the more problems you can get solved off the top of their list, eventually the problem you solve will now be at the top.
Absolutely. And I think when you help people, genuinely help people,
Mhm.
they get to trust you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When you help them fix enough of their other problems, right? Because you're the person who then connected them to every person or every other business who solved all those other problems. So then when you eventually get to the point where now you're asking them again, what's your biggest pain point? And then they finally list the thing that you can solve. Now, when you ask for the sale, when you say, here's what I have that can fix that, they are happy to pay it because you have fixed all these other problems for them.
Exactly. So when you help someone genuinely, they get to know, like, and trust you. And when they know, like, and trust you, then they know that if you say you're going to solve their problem, they know you will.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so important. So okay, so number one thing you got to do as a salesperson is ask the questions, find
Yes.
out where their pain. What if, like, in the situation where, like, you had a migraine, but you didn't Because oftentimes I think there's a disconnect, right, in sales.
Yeah.
So, as coaches and consultants or people selling a product or a service, whatever it may be, sometimes we look at our customers and we know what they need, okay? But they don't know what they need. They don't know the solution. They just know the problem.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
how do you, and so if they can't connect to you with the problem, how do you draw that out of them?
That's where the questions come in, right?
Okay.
Is you're asking them questions that are leading them down the path, because what you're trying to find out is, so what do they believe the problem is, right? Because you can try and educate them all day long, but if they don't believe you, then they're not going to buy, right? It's just not going to happen. But if you can listen to what they believe the problem is, use the words that they are using when you're speaking with them, right? So then that psychologically tells them that you're listening to them. Do not paraphrase. Do not paraphrase. Do not put your own spin on it. Do not put their answer to your questions through your filter and then spit it out with your own words. No, 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 no. That does not make them feel heard.
Okay.
You've got to be using the words that they use to define the pain, to define what the problem is. So when somebody says, so what I'm hearing is you are having like head splitting pain, right? There's extreme light sensitivity going on right now. You have some nausea, all the, so, because that's how I would describe my migraine. And so when she said, so that's what you're experiencing? Yes. She said, I have an oil that will fix that. Would you like to try it? Yes. Because she repeated it back. So repeat back those words. That's how they feel heard, right? And connects them to you to the point where they're willing to go the next step that might take a little bit of faith, right? So just walking them from, but you have to be able to ask the questions and know which questions to ask based on what do they think their problem is and how do you move them step by step to get them to the point where they now understand you may have the solution. So when I'm talking people through a sales process or a sales conversation, at some point, I coach my clients through, okay, now you are going to do what's called permission-based selling. You're going to ask permission to sell to the person, because once you have been able to, once they know and they feel and they express to you, wow, you really get what's going on with me, then you now have an opening. This is where the door to the sale has cracked open. And the way that you can gently open it a little bit further is by asking permission and saying, so that pain sounds like it's really awful for you, right? So you're going to start with empathy, right? Be empathetic. And then I might have a solution. Would you be open to hearing about the solution I have for you? That opens the door. And then they go, yes. Okay. So because you told me your pain points are this, this, and this, and that this is what it's causing for you, my solution is this thing. So in the case of the migraine, it was this oil. Here's how you use it. Here, let me give you a sample. Let's try it. See if it works for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, I'm not going to sell you a whole bottle of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Fantastic. Yes, let's try it. 15 minutes later, it works. How much?
And actually, the how much probably becomes you're not even that price sensitive, because if it's a solution to your problem.
Exactly. Exactly. And like I said, for me, when I asked her the question of how much, I just wanted to know how much was going on the credit card. That's all. It,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't because I was making a decision based on that. It was just going, okay, which credit card am I going to put this on? So yeah, when you can open the door by asking for permission to sell them, and I want people to pay attention to the words that I used. It was, I might have a solution, right? Or I might have a couple. We need to figure out which one might be best. Are you open, or would you be open to hearing about it? And the important thing there is open, because no one wants to appear closed-minded.
Oh, this is really, really great information. Yeah, this is so, so,
Right.
so, so good. Okay, so then how does this translate to social media?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So especially for direct salespeople, The thing that tends to happen is when somebody posts on social media that they're having a migraine, right? Or they post the problem that you fix, whatever that is. With direct salespeople, what they have a tendency to do is hop on the comment section and go, "Oh my God, I have the thing." You haven't even figured out, do they want to solve the problem right now? Because just because they posted about it doesn't mean they're going to solve it. Some people want to stew in their own stuff for a while. So on social media, there's a way to approach that conversation. Now, it also helps on the marketing side because marketing and sales are two different things two different things in real life and also on social media. But most salespeople conflate the two. They feel like posting about things is sales. No. That's marketing, right? The posting, the letting people know that you still exist, you're still in business, you still have these products and services that can solve problems, right? But what you want to do is when you see somebody posting the problem that you have, you're going to go ahead and then ask permission once again to have that conversation. And it's the same thing. It's, hey, I think I might have a solution for you. Can I send you a private message so we can discuss it over here? Very simple way to get the permission to say, yes, if you're open to solving it, cool, let me help you over here. And then that way you're not blowing up everybody else's notifications because you guys are having a conversation right there in front of the whole world to see.
Yeah,
Right?
it's also true that you also you market online, but you sell offline. It's that it's a conversation with a person rather than with
Right.
many people at the one time.
Well, and I think also too, what that does when you say, I might have a solution, can I send you a message? And they say yes, right? What that does for anybody else who may be reading that and they have the same problem, guess what happens? They're going to message you and say, hey, I have that same problem. What's the solution that you provided for Susie?
Yeah.
Did she buy it? Did it help her? Right now, it's now creating desire for people to, like, a curiosity for what is that thing and did it help her? And does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
So that really helps with that. But the marketing piece of the social media is sharing the stories. You want to be sharing the stories. Nobody cares about the features and benefits of frankincense oil until they know what it's going to do for them. So I tell my oil lady all the time, I'm like, you should be sharing my frankincense oil story, like every freaking week, because lots of people in your tribe, your followers, are migraine sufferers, and you're always adding new people. So you should be sharing that story every week so that the migraine sufferers go, oh my gosh, wait, you have a fix for this?
That's
right?
so true. Testimonials, the
Yeah.
social proof.
Yes. Share the stories, right? Don't be just, here's a picture of the oil. Who cares?
I know.
I'm sorry. I know you love that oil. I know you love it. I promise you no one else cares. The picture of the bottle of oil or whatever your product or service may be is never going to outright sell something. It's going to be the story that people hear about the person that you helped with that thing, whether it's hey, I know a mom who now uses this oil in a diffuser every night. I worked with her to help her create a bedtime routine with her kids. You know what I mean? So it's sharing that story. Here's what we did together and here's the outcome. Her kids now go to bed and all she has to do is say, okay, start it up. And her kids will go start the diffuser. They'll grab the other oils that they want to use. They'll go brush their teeth and then they're off to bed by themselves. She doesn't have to put them to bed anymore. How powerful is that marketing to all the moms of young children who are pulling their hair out every night because their kids are getting out of bed 17 times,
Yeah, I always say that, people see their social media then as just a sales channel. And so, like, yes, it's important to sell, but it's also important to create a connection and to create awareness and, Yeah, so I usually talk about social media content creation under four pillars: awareness. Here I am, this is who I am. Here I am, I'm on a trip. This is what I do. Here's my cat. Here's my dog. Here's what I like to do in my spare time. There's the expert, so the content. So that's like, here's three ways that you can get rid of a migraine, or here's three things you can do. There's a
Mm.
sales where, yeah, you say, here I am with my products. And then there's the advocate going, here's Jennie. This is what Jennie says. And actually, Jennie's greatest benefit was my migraine was cleared instantly and I feel great.
Yeah.
So it's like the greatest benefit, and the emotions, they're so powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And so, having that availability and what I recommend with my clients, and you're the social media expert. I am not a social media expert necessarily. I mean, I'm an expert at scrolling for sure.
We're all experts at scrolling.
Right. But based on that, I know what I would want to see, which is I want to see who you are as a person. And I know that you are more than just your business. So if all I ever see are your business posts, then that's not as exciting for me.
Exactly. If
And
it's just the bottle of whatever, you're just going to scroll past.
exactly, you're going to keep going. Now, if you regularly have those posts that let people know who you are, why you love what you do, sharing those kinds of stories, sharing your travels that you're doing. I mean, I literally just was in Las Vegas last week. I don't live in Las Vegas, so that was a trip for me. And I had people asking me today, "How was your trip to Vegas?" I didn't tell the person that I was going to Vegas. They saw it on Facebook,
Yeah, it's so
you know.
powerful.
So it tells me, even though they weren't necessarily liking my stuff or commenting, they're watching.
Oh yeah, that is how social media has gone. I think people are very silent. They're silent scrollers.
Oh, so many of
Um,
them.
yeah, but they're still there, and
Yeah.
they still see what you do, and it's, yeah, they'll say it back to you. Or if you do something like out of the ordinary, yeah, they will say it to you all the time. My husband, who is allergic to social media, and I put up our holiday photos about 2 or 3 years ago, and he kept saying, "Oh, the amount of people were asking me, how was France? And how was France? And how was France?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah." So he couldn't believe all the people who knew where we were. Now, we were home by the time I posted them, but so okay, Jennie. So for anyone who's thinking about who has to have a sales conversation in the near future, and sales have not been their thing, and so you're saying, first of all, ask lots of questions. Listen to what the person you're speaking to is saying. Repeat back to them the words that they are using. Ask them for permission. So ask them if they're open to hearing about the solution. And it's a might rather than a solution that might work for you rather than will work for you. Okay. And then you have the opportunity to present the solution. Any other advice you'd give?
I think the key for all of that is even if they say no now, continue the relationship and follow up. Because, I mean, in the world of direct sales and network marketing, one of the phrases that people spout all the time, but they don't actually do it, most of them don't, is follow up. Fortune is in the follow up, right? The staying connected with people. And there is an art to follow up that leads to more sales for sure. And that's a whole other conversation we could go on for days about, because it really is a key piece of a sales conversation when somebody says, "Oh, well, not right now," or this is not the right time," or no, no, thank you. It doesn't mean that they're not going to want it later, because there were plenty of people who told me no and then came back to me later and said, "You know what? Actually, I see that necklace that you were wearing in that picture and I want it," because I was the jewelry lady, right? So they had said no before, but new jewelry was always coming out. And so I'd be taking selfies or pictures of me with my kids, literally just not using my kids, taking pictures of me with my kids. But of course, I was a walking billboard for my product, So people would then see it and go, "Ooh, I really like that necklace. How do I get it?"
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas before they didn't care. They were they,
Yeah.
were- they weren't attached to any of the pieces from the previous book, you know?
And you know what? There's another message there. You got to be a walking billboard for your business as well, no matter what you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely, for sure. I mean, again, that's another topic that could be an entire episode around that for sure.
So Jennie, if people want to hear more about you, Where can they find out about you?
Oh, best place is probably my podcast. Because one thing I know about podcast listeners is that, for them, podcasts are like potato chips. You can't have just one. They're listening to lots of them. So Badass Direct Sales Mastery is my podcast. And if they want to learn more, see more, badassdirectsalesmastery.com. So all one word all together. I know it's the longest domain in the history of ever, but that's the way it worked out.
You know what? I think it's great. I think it's great because when I read it, I just had a little giggle to myself. I said, I just love it. Straight away, you just know, this person's going to be fun.
That's the point. That's the point of this, is to let it be a branding piece that precedes me, so that people either get the joke, and then the people who don't get the joke are not aligned. They weed themselves out very easily. So I generally know when somebody, has reached out to me, or in our case, we were introduced by a mutual friend. We're good. We're golden. Somebody's going to get the joke. They're going to find it amusing. It's all good.
Exactly. And those people who don't, you probably don't want to work with them anyhow, because everybody has their people. Yeah. Which is totally
Yeah,
fine.
for sure. Because, branding, again, a whole other conversation that is a possibility. But what I knew was that anybody who couldn't listen to an episode because they didn't feel aligned to the BDSM piece of the branding, they're not my client anyway. Because as a coach, I'm going to be asking you to do some things that are a little uncomfortable, like have a sales conversation, right? And so we're going to be practicing those, and I'm going to give you the skills, but it's going to be uncomfortable. So if somebody can't even listen to a podcast that nobody else knows you're listening to because you're not aligned and it makes you really uncomfortable, we're not aligned. They're not my person. And that's okay, because there's lots of other people who are for them. I'm
That's so
not for
true.
them.
It's so true. And you know what? It's also a very important message about being outside your comfort zone. Because in order to grow, I think you have to push yourself outside your comfort zone. It doesn't mean that you'll always be there, because the more you do something and the more you get confident doing it, you're not so much outside your comfort zone. You grow. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, the
Yes.
comfort zone grows. That's what's so cool. Your comfort
Yeah.
zone is not a static line around you. It grows the more you do. So every little baby step that you take outside of your comfort zone and realize that, A, you didn't die, right? Because your brain is just trying to keep you from dying, right? It doesn't realize that emotional fear is not the same thing as a saber-toothed tiger, right? So when you take that baby step out of the comfort zone and go, oh, I didn't die, the comfort zone gets a little bit bigger. Now, if you take that baby step out of the comfort zone and something really good happens, and the comfort zone expands very quickly, but that comfort zone does expand. It does get bigger. You just have to be willing to take the step out to allow it to do that.
Fantastic. Jennie, you've been a wonderful guest, and I have really enjoyed our conversation, and I really learned a lot as well. So thank you so much for being so open and sharing all your expert advice. And I look forward to checking out your podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Louise. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait. I can't wait to listen to other episodes of your show.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Social Media Takeaway podcast. If you loved this episode and want deeper support with your marketing, head over to sellonsocialmedia.academy/hello.